grew up here, and my first experience was with a VBS at Evergreen Christian Center. I think I was 8 or 9 years old, I think, like 3rd or 4th grade, something like that.
Well, I grew up going to church. My dad worked for a family that attended a church, and they invited us, and at first us kids went without my parents because my dad just wasn't sure that was what he wanted to do. And then, and it was sometime in elementary school that, in Sunday school, in fact, the very lady whose family had invited us to first start going is the one that was my Sunday school teacher, and shared about Christ. And I don't know how long we had been going to church, but it was when I was in elementary school, and it was at Sunday school with this friend of ours who, I just remember one Sunday she was doing her whole flannel graph lesson, and at the end of it she talked about that we were all sinners, and that's why Christ died on the cross for us. And it was just really clear to me then. I was probably 1st or 2nd grade, and I just really remember that being so clear to me that I wanted what they had, and recognizing that I was a sinner. And then when I was in high school, we attended a youth event in Ellensburg, and that was the point where I think for me it became real that it was my decision and not kind of that elementary, I want to be like what these people are, but then it really became my decision and my commitment.
Well, my initial was at the VBS. As I grew up, my family, my extended family, were pastors and preachers, and I did not make the connection about being a sinner. I didn't understand when they say everybody's a sinner. I would be like, no, I'm not. That's not who I am. I don't understand. Anyway, there was a time in my life where I ran the opposite direction. Like, my walk wasn't anywhere near my mind, and anything I could do to get away from that was what I did. I probably began searching really hard just after I got out of high school, and the irony of it is, like, it was when I met Bridget that I was smitten with Bridget, and I was very in love with her, and she says, well, if you want to be with me, you better go to church. And it was the church in Cheney Community, Cheney Community Church, where there was another couple that counseled us, if you will, or mentored, and he mentored me, and I reconnected with Christ, and well, the rest is sort of history in that respect. It brought me back full circle, and I recommitted myself at that point. Definitely mine would be Mike and Jenny from our first church that we attended together. And I'm drawing a blank. What's his name? That's nothing new. I love the guy, Ralph.
Oh, yeah.
Ralph. He was in his
I don't know.
late 90s, and he talked me through a lot of
Ralph
things.
and Thelma.
Yep. And that was, I don't know, I've always had a connection with him.
Sure.
And then Mike and Jenny, the two of us had a huge influence on the beginning of our marriage, positive influence, because I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea.
Well,
Yeah.
without them, we may not have stayed married.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
Yeah. And then I would have to say, as far as our life together, I can't speak to Bridget's experience before, but I'd have to say Tom Starr, both directly and indirectly, and there's a whole other backstory there that we don't have time for probably. And then Pastor John at Valley Forth had a huge impact on us.
I think many of the people that we would both say are people that were connected in the churches that we have attended through our married life. you know, having grown up in the church, there were a number of individuals in my growing up life that I think back on. Leona, who, I mean, she had lost her husband before I ever knew them, and she just was one of those that took our family in, and my sister and I both worked for her at different times, and women that just, they prayed daily. I mean, like, their prayer life was phenomenal, and I can think of them sending me notes of encouragement and cards and different things when I went off to college, and it was always that godly focus, and just that, how much that meant to me, and then how much that was such an example of what my responsibility was as a Christian in supporting others. And then, you know, when we moved here, God connected us into Little Rock from the beginning. We came before we ever had moved over here officially, and we were out looking for homes.
And I thought I knew where we wanted to live, and so we were driving down Little Rock, and I was waiting for the trees to show up, but there were houses on both sides of the road and buildings.
And we drove by the sign for the church, and I said to Chad, "Hey, I think we should check that out." So we wrote it down. And then when we had moved here, the first weekend we were here, Joe and Lisa Divig, who Chad knows Joe because they're both in the orchestra world, he texted and said, "Hey, we want to invite you to go to church with us." And lo and behold, here it was, Little Rock Community Church. And we had also been told... Before
that, my orchestra world, my previous orchestra teacher, worked with Dan Schwartz for many years, and he says, "Hey, I don't know if you're ready to buy a house or anything like that, or what you're looking at, but I'd love to recommend these people. They're just really wonderful people, and you've heard me talk about Dan over the years." And I go, "Yeah." And he says, "It's really handy because Heather's a realtor, and Dan's also a home inspector, so it's a package deal." And it's pretty wonderful. And lo and behold, we walked into Little Rock, and there's
Who's leading music
but Dan.
Dan.
And Bridget and I kind of both looked at each other when we walked through the door and figured it all out, and we were just like, it was...
And we walked out that Sunday and said,
right,
"We don't have to look anywhere else." That was just really clear.
Very comforting and clear direction. Yeah.
Little Rock has just been a huge support to us in some of the unique challenges of having made this move, and some of the things that we've dealt with since being here, you know, sending Hope to Texas and all of those kinds of things.
For me, and referring back to the other question about influential people, it's provided me with a support group like I haven't ever had. And I say the church, particularly Little Rock. There's a group of men I know I can count on no matter what, and that's the first time I've ever felt that way, legitimately. I mean, wholeheartedly felt that way. Other places, of course, there's a support system, but it never felt connected, and I feel the same responsibility as a church family, and that's huge. It's a big deal for me.
And I think that word family, I mean, I think that is the reality. For Chad, when we moved here, it was home. But for me, it was leaving everything that was familiar and, moving hundreds of miles away. And Little Rock became family. And I think that I can honestly say that's how it's been. It's how it was in Cheney when I moved away from home and went to college. Cheney community became my family, and they took care of me like I was family. And I know when we left there and went to the church in the Spokane Valley, that it was like pulling teeth to get Chad to look. But again, God blessed us in giving us a church family in the valley. And there were some things that happened there that made us change churches and never really kind of settled until we moved over here. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, it just was very clear we were to be here. And I know that all the way through, even from when I was a kid. Think back to some of the challenges that my parents faced raising us, and the church was always, they were the ones that were there supporting our family, and they were the ones that were meeting our spiritual needs, but also those tangible needs. You know, when on Communion Sundays, when you guys talk about the benevolence fund, my family were some of the recipients of that at different times. And just how much that meant. And now as I look back, I mean, I didn't get it when I was a kid. Even in middle school, I didn't understand the importance of that. I knew that they were putting food on our table. But as I look back, those are the kinds of things that have influenced my life and how I approach life, and definitely our lives together and how we've chosen to approach life and others and raise our girls, and with that constant look at how can we be God in our community to everyone. I mean, I think about that daily, standing in my classroom as I'm greeting my kids that come in my door. How can I show God to them in a way that is apparent and clear and open for them to ask questions if they have them, even in that public school setting, which can be so weird, I guess, for lack of a better word.
We were just talking about this on the way home from church, either the last service or the one before, and I think I was commenting on how I don't know how other people are doing it, because I need and appreciate so much God's steadfast love and comforting care, and I think right now that's very important. That's super comforting to know that it's not through my strength, it's through His strength that I can get through anything. And I referred back to situations in my life where nobody should have been able to do the things that we did successfully without His strength, period. You know, we had some pretty tough times for a while, but not tough, well, okay, they were tough. But and I just, it's very comforting to be able to fall back on God and know that He's there no matter what.
Think about the last 2 years and the faithfulness in His, you know, when He says, here are the promises that I've outlined for you, and His faithfulness to that. You know, I think about all the different challenges of sending Hope 2,100 miles away to go to school, and some of the challenges that she's experienced there, and us being here and not being able to, you know, just quickly solve some of those problems, and yet repeatedly God puts people or, you know, situations where He just has made it very clear, this is the path I have for her, here are my promises, here let me show you that this is true. Some of the situations we've dealt with here at home, at work, and you know, that again, God just continues to point out that everything I've outlined in my word is true, and I'm faithful to those, and I'm committed to those, and that just is continually reaffirming that as long as we're looking to God, He'll make that clear. Maybe not the way I think it should go, but the way that He knows is best.